Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Chris Isbell with Martin and Associates. I want to thank you all for joining us today to learn more about the product known as BI360 from a company named Solver. We've been working with them for many years and have a number of clients with them that use the software and take advantage of everything it has to offer. So today you'll learn more about, in general, what is BI360 and how can it, help your organization and what all does it offer in its suite. And to introduce that and lead our webinar discussion today is Anthony Spanicchia. He's our BI360 rep, and he's been working with us since the beginning and for BI360 for a while. He's based in the lovely, sunny, hopefully warmer Las Vegas, and he'll be leading this today. So if you have any questions at all, please use the chat window in your Zoom app and ask any questions you want. And at the end of the session, we'll cover any questions that have been asked. Other than that, I hope you enjoy the webinar, and I will hand over to Anthony. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you, Chris. And yes, it's sunny here. We've been having upper 70s, so it's lovely here. And I have been watching the weather in the east. So good luck to everyone there. Drive safe until they get all that snow cleaned up. Yes, and so we're going to take a tour today of BI360. I'm going to try to keep it pretty fast moving. And as mentioned, you'll be able to ask questions, so just put them in that chat box, and we're going to try to leave plenty of time at the end for questions. So hopefully you'll have some. Don't be shy about it. We're going to take a tour of BI360, show you some of the support resources. I think that's important for everyone to know. How is the product supported? And then we'll do Q&A here at the end. I've got a slide asking for questions. So with that, let's move along. I'd like to mention who makes the product. I always like to take a moment to put that in perspective. Solver is the company. We're founded and still headquartered in Los Angeles. We now have crossed 3,000 customers with this product called BI360, which has been on the market, I think now 10 years, because I'm in my 9th year, and when I joined, they were about a year or so into BI360. But just so you know, Solver has a long history of making CPM, corporate performance management solutions, that go back to 1996 when we were founded. And the two previous solutions, one was sold to Microsoft and one was sold to SAP, and they were used by over 20,000 companies. We're a private company with no external funding and no intentions to sell the company, which makes us quite unique. And thus, we are opening offices all around the world. I know maybe we're thinking about the U.S. today, but just so you know, the company has a grand vision for this product that it can grow and grow and grow because the market acceptance. So just to put that in perspective, we're thinking a lot bigger than the U.S. And also, we're pretty proud that we're getting rated by G2. So G2, of course, is a system now where customers, actual users, go in and evaluate solutions. And so we're proud that we're getting a lot of reviews in G2. It was called G2 Crowd. I think now they've just recently modified it to call it G2. Okay. BI3, as you're going to see, I'm going to go quickly here. BI360 encompasses reporting, not just financial, operational, budgeting, anything from simple GL budgeting to advanced budgeting, and even we support workflows. You'll see a little bit of that today. BI360 has a data warehouse. Every customer gets this data warehouse. It's all up in Azure. We support it. We do have a private host version available, but everyone gets a data warehouse. And what that means is you can connect data beyond your ERP to include in reports, or commingle data from multiple sources in reports or budgets, or even do forecasting of things outside of your ERP. When it comes to visualizations, you're going to see this today as well. We do that a couple different ways. Of course, our reports are, as you're going to see, built in Excel. So all Excel graphics are supported. But we also have an API with Power BI. So earlier this year with Microsoft, we co-developed this API, and it allows a Power BI desktop user to just point at our data warehouse and use that to build their reports. There's a lot of slick advantages to that. I think the simplicity of just having an API that exposes the data for analysis is the big value. So we're tightly integrated with Microsoft. All right. This is just a little bit of a visualization. There is a private host version available, but I just like to do this illustration. This is all up in Azure, and I apologize. I just see this edit here. Mistake there. But the point I try to illustrate here is, again, we're not limited to simple ERP, GL reporting or budgeting. You can connect multiple sources of data, maybe periodic data dumps from your payroll system, HR system, industry applications that you have where you're gathering data. All of this, instead of having different tools to address, to be able to do reports or budgets on these different sources of data, it all can be aggregated in one place and use the same tool for all of it. And again, Azure, we're in Azure, so we support it. Of our 3,000 customers, we've just crossed over 100 that are in the cloud. But the big change this year is 80 to 90% of new orders are for our cloud-based solution. So it's clearly a market trend. We released, just so you know, it's not just a new cloud solution. We released it 2.5 years ago in June. It's a mature product, and we've clearly seen that this is where customers want to go. And we're rapidly starting to migrate our installed base to the cloud version. So I think most of our references are to cloud for good reason, because that seems to be where the market is and where it's going. But we still do have a private host version, and it looks identical to what I'm going to show you today. So that's in a case where you could host it or have it hosted somewhere. So there are some organizations, certain industries where it's required to use a private host, and we do still support that, and we intend to. Okay, I'm going to change screens now, so just give me a moment. Here we go. All right, everyone should be seeing this screen here where it says welcome me. I logged in a little while ago before we got started into the BI360 Cloud, again, in Azure. From an end user's perspective, from a customer's perspective, when they log in, what they see, it's according to their security. So an administrator, a key core staff accountant at the organization, maybe they'll see everything that's available, everything they've enabled in BI360. But you may have a select group of users that are simply people that log in to see a report. Everyone will see some sort of a home screen. By the way, this is all customizable. But if maybe there's a group of people that you just want them to see a particular type of report. It could be a financial report, could be a group of reports. And this would be the area called archive. So within here, and again, you may have many reports. You may use a list view. Maybe accountants like to use a list view, but other people like to see the report to confirm they're looking at the correct one. Now, let's go ahead and open one and start looking at some of the features. So this report was built here in Excel, and it's now being viewed through this HTML5 browser. You can see this particular report was executed on a particular entity, a time period, and maybe, in this case, budget scenario. It could be actuals. It could be anything. But this is an executed report. And these graphics here were created in Excel. They're simply Excel-type graphics. But an end user, so in a sense, this is a static report, and yet you could still right-click on any particular item, and it'll still bring up the transaction detail. Here is another tab. What are the transactions that make up that total? You can still do drill down here. Furthermore, you can download the report. You may enable the end user to download this report. I don't know why that's set to download as a PDF. Okay, so you can download it as a PDF. I think I clicked something here. But it also could be downloaded as an Excel sheet. I'll download it to Excel and we'll show you what can be done with it in a moment. Here's another interesting area of the archive. This is an area where you can group particular reports together to create a package that we call a playlist. So again, if you at your organization, you're involved with monthly presentations, instead of trying to keep a bunch of spreadsheets open or cutting and pasting them into a PowerPoint, you can group them together into a logical group of reports that you can then present like in your monthly meeting. Now this is just an interesting one. This one is actually written automatically. It's called auto narrative. So certain adjectives are tied to certain levels of performance, and then every time the report is executed, it actually writes a little summary of the performance. But again, this is a very high level type of package. Shows some key metrics and includes even some graphics. But this is all just simply Excel type graphics. Anyone creating reports, you're simply using Excel graphics. So you're using your Excel skills to create these particular types of reports. This is a high level one. I just want to show one more here maybe that might hit home to some of you. Maybe a monthly budget presentation that you have to do. So again, it could be whatever you put in here. Again, this is Excel graphics. Maybe you want to look at your cash. You can have comments about all the different various. All these reports can be generated automatically, not even with a manual intervention. They could be just done, proofed by the accounting staff, and placed into these packages. So this is an area called playlists. So this is one category of users. They're a bit passive. We have another category, think of it this way, is end users who are a bit more active. People that can actually run reports. Now here again, and by the way, every example we have is all free to our customers to download. So they can make them part of their own use. If you're intrigued by many of these reports, you can have them and they're free to you. You can see here in this case, we've got a lot of examples. And I should ask if anyone's speaking maybe to mute. If we have a couple people unmuted, getting a little feedback. In this case, you've got a lot of reports, so at some point you're going to have enough reports, you might want to have a nice folder system. We have a default one, but you can completely customize your folder system to make it easier for you. Let's go back and look at more features of reports. So this was the same report we saw before, but the difference here is that the end user is able to execute it. They can change the parameters. What unit do I want to run this report on? Change the time period. And again, budget, actuals. By the way, you can have unlimited scenarios and budgets. So in this case, they would select those and click Run. They could also, this could be a staff accountant who finalizes this for the month and then sends it over to the archive by clicking this button. And now it's available for those, according to their security, who are enabled to view the report. But just like in archive users, this report could get exported to Excel. Give me a moment here. When it comes up, I'm going to drag it over to this screen. I've got several monitors here. And so in this case, just like it could be an archive, someone may want to download a report and do some sort of modeling. So it was up there in the cloud in a browser, and yet the report could be downloaded and all of the formulas carry forward. And as you saw there, maybe some of the graphics, I'll do it again here. We'll see how this changes. Everything comes back into this report. It was built in Excel. And so someone could download it if you enable them and do some sort of modeling. And yet the actual original version of the report is not affected. So that's one option. How are reports built? Well, I'm going to show you later where we have a lot of videos, but you can edit a report or create a new report right inside Excel. So again, this is coming up on another screen, so I'll drag it back over. So you can see BI360. For those of you that have known about our product for some years, we've been in the ERP world, as I mentioned, for many, many years. Years ago, originally, when the product first was released, it was an Excel add-in. Then after a couple of years, it became enabled through a web portal, and now you're seeing the very latest version. But we haven't lost this ability to build the report in Excel. Customers have always loved and embraced the idea that they can use their Excel skills to build reports. They're not using something different, creating a report, and then trying to export or get it back into Excel for the different reasons. So it's still a drag and drop experience for creating reports. So you're going to choose particular accounts you want in the report and drag and drop them into the report. But this formatting and the formulas, they're Excel. We have a lot of default formulas for you to use, many, many different types, but you can write formulas right in here if you'd like. Also note here that we can report on much more. It's not just limited to general ledger. And it could include data that's outside of your ERP. So the data that's in your data warehouse is available here to create your reports. And when you're done creating the report, editing it, you simply upload it. It's no longer local. It goes back up here to be available in this report group, and it actually comes back up as a draft. This little notation here means it's a draft. And then you validate the report, make it available. And again, you may make it available to archive. You could manually, just like I mentioned, you could have people manually running reports, sending them to archive. We saw that before with this button. Send it to the archive. We have another option called Publisher. This is where you could set up an auto run of reports. So you'd set up a job that would determine to run specific reports on specific days and distribute them to specific users. And when this runs, it could be a Friday sales report, a cash report on a Friday or end of month, whatever you'd like to do, it'll automatically push it here to the archive, and or it can push it out in an email. And it can go out as either an Excel sheet or even just a PDF. So Publisher has been a very popular feature of our solution. Of course, budgeting. Let's talk a little bit here about budgeting. So it's good that we talked about reports. You understand some of the basic concepts of reports, that they're built in Excel and then placed here in the portal. And that's the same thing with budgeting. And by the way, we have, again, many budgeting example forms. You can still have a folder system here. But the same principles apply. We'll just look at a couple features here. Again, you're going to have particular parameters for a budget input form. Like you just create one form. You don't need a different one for different groups. And then you just select who am I going to do some budgeting for, what group, what department. Of course, you're going to want to, it'd be very convenient when you do budgets to be able to see last year's actuals, or not just last year's, it could be last year, it could be this year's if you're updating an annual budget on a monthly basis. So you can always see what the actual results are. You can have, like I said, unlimited budget versions or forecast versions. You can make reference to them here. What's the forecast? And yet, you could go in and just edit and put in your numbers manually. You could insert formulas, and we also have many spreading techniques available. So it could be anything from even spreads to trend-based spreading, take historicals, increase by 2%. Very powerful options when it comes to spreading. And furthermore, you can have comments, at the cell level, the line level, or even the sheet level. It's a very advanced budgeting tool, and like I said before, it's not limited to just general ledger. It could be some capital budgeting. We'll just go back here. Many examples. By the way, you can see I'm leaving this form. You can see I edited some numbers, and it's warning me you didn't save it. So let me explain that. As I went to leave, by the way, I can update numbers. I can run it, see the effects, see what the bottom line is, how it affects the projections, and see it in real time. But until I approve and I'm satisfied with it, nothing is saved back to the data warehouse. That's why when I left, it's saying, hey, you did not save this. Are you going to abandon what you just did? And in my case, I am. But once you hit save data, this comes back to the data warehouse, and then it's made available if you're setting up a workflow for an approver to see the results of your budget, that you completed it, and maybe it's aggregating data from other people, from other departments that are entering data. So again, I'm going to leave it. Again, we have many different examples here. And again, it's not just general ledger budgeting. Over the years, I've noticed a lot of people like this is a simple base personnel budget form. But I've seen a lot of customers respond to this and decide to implement this form, or maybe with a few minor tweaks. Many examples all available to you. So again, I want to say these are designed in Excel, which means you can create any type of forecast. Whatever you're doing today or whatever you envision and you want to do, if Excel can do it, it could be how you create your forecast, because these are built in Excel. And of course, then they're all tied together. You can have certain forms that drive into others, an assumptions form. Obviously, we have many videos and webinars all about budgeting, which go into the minutia. There's a lot of complexity that you can have if you need to do that. Now, when you set up a workflow, you may have multiple workflows for different groups, different departments. From the end user's point of view, they're going to get, if you set up a workflow, they're going to get assignments. By the way, when they log in, if there's an active assignment, that's also one notification they may get. There's none here, but when I logged in, if in this demo model I was prompted to complete an assignment, it would let me know, hey, there's an assignment, you have 1 week to complete it. But notifications also can be done by email as well. And so someone's going to come in and they'll see their assignments, and I guess this is more of a process one. Let me go back. But this one does summarize the process. But this is where you would come in and the customer would, your associate would come in and start completing their particular assignments. Let's see here. So in this case, there's, like I said, we have just so many examples. I'm trying to impress upon you that we have many, many examples. But they would have an assignment, they would complete it and save it. And then it's available to be reviewed and approved. Okay. Hopefully we're getting some questions that we're going to address in a while. I want to cover a couple other areas here, and then we're going to take a peek at how we're integrated with Power BI. The data warehouse. You might be curious, wow, a data warehouse, that's beyond me. I'm not in the IT department. I don't know much about setting up and supporting them. It's a lot easier than you think. We have connectors that connect to your different sources of data. And so this would be, we have customers who self-implement, but we can do it. And certainly Chris and his team have implemented our product many times. They would choose the particular connector that's suitable for your source of data and use that and set up this integration. That then exposes the data from your source. And, there is a little bit of a mapping exercise from whatever the source is. Let's say it's a payroll. You're going to have to map the data coming out of your payroll system that's going to come into here, the data warehouse, but it's all customizable by you. And as that connection, once it's set up, you'll notice you're not seeing SQL names here. Now, some of you may have some skill and know in GP, for one example, what the SQL name is for a particular account, but you don't need to know that. Everything has been translated into normal language, and you don't need to know SQL. And you could, on your own, begin to set up the mapping from source data into these tables. These are examples that are default. There's no limit to how many modules of data you can set up here. By the way, we also have, if you work with multiple currencies, we have a nice currency engine as well as setting up trees. We support trees, roll-ups, and you can manipulate all of that here the way your organization maybe sets up data or ties companies together, consolidates companies. Needless to say, this is just the area where your administrator will be setting up security rules and other things. So again, when people log in, what they see, even if they have access to the archive, they may see only the reports that are relevant to them, which may be a single report or multiple reports, but they're not necessarily going to see data reports that are not relative to them. Now, the interesting thing about the data warehouse I mentioned before previously is that Power BI can access all of the data here in BI360. So let's go over to, here we go. So in this case, now this is a web version because we set up a complex demo model here, but you might be using Power BI desktop. It'll be interesting, maybe even in the chat box, if people want to raise their hand, how many people use Power BI or are planning to. And certainly Martin and Associates has skills to help you with Power BI. But in this case, these are different types of example dashboards that are accessing the data that's already in the data warehouse. You don't have to create up separate data connections to your ERP or other data sources to create these. With this magical API, it exposes the data. And naturally, although I showed you, Excel has some very powerful graphics that people have used for years. The advantage of a world-class tool like Power BI, which I understand is the #1 dashboard tool in the world, allow you to be much more complex and to be able to drill into different types of data, and that moves kind of quickly, but whatever it is, dependent charts, graphs. The idea of a dashboard is you can drill, drill, drill. You can still, by the way, just on the fly, enable, maybe I really only want to look at 6 months of data. It's as simple as a click. Power BI, I'm not a Power BI salesman, but it's an amazing tool that you can use to examine your operations. And it's just, and you know, I would say in your organization, again, I don't have a profile of exactly who's on the call, but certainly your executives, this is very appealing. And Power BI is very tightly integrated with BI360. So the accounting group at your organization may have needs for better ways to do reporting and budgeting. The sales group may also have a need to get better visibility about performance and projections. And the executives want to see maybe all of it at a very high level. Typically, executives are more concerned with high-level views and graphics of exactly what's going on. And they love to be able to peek at this maybe multiple times throughout the day. Obviously, liquidity, cash flow, all of this is, in this case, these are all just our examples. By the way, I believe we've now developed about a couple hundred of these dashboards. And again, our customers can have them for free. Let me go back here to where I started. By the way, you can also post reports if for some reason you have certain users, and again, it could be an executive. They say, I just want to go to one place to see my dashboards and my reports. That's fine. You can upload reports that were created in BI360 here to be viewed here. This looks familiar, one of the ones we looked earlier. And or you can set up a link directly that would allow them to launch the report right here in Power BI. Again, this is done through the desktop. I'm in a web version. And literally go in and launch the report. You have a link here, and it launches a report that you've got set up here in BI360. Just go with one click, automatically go to this browser and open this. So it's a very tight integration with Power BI, and we're quite proud of that. Okay, so again, I've been moving fairly quickly to give everyone I tried to keep this fairly fast-paced, not get bogged down in too much minutia for you, but let's show you where you could learn about more minutia. This is our website, solverglobal.com, and if you go in here, we have countless videos, many videos, even by different subjects. I mentioned before, well, again, if you're an accountant, it says, oh, looks nice, exactly how do I design a report? And you don't want to have to call Chris and say, Chris, show me exactly how a report is built. Chris has built many for his customers. We have videos here that'll go into the details. There's a large library here. So again, just go to products. There's even shorter videos here, maybe at the high level. There's full webinars available, white papers on, like, for example, integration with Power BI. There's a lot available just through our public website, solverglobal.com. Also interesting to know, we're quite proud of it, is that we have an annual user conference. And I think I still have a link to last year's. We're about to announce this year's. This might, yeah, we still have maybe some information from last year. Every year, we have a user conference. If you were to implement our solution, it could become a very important part of your work life. And you may want to be very close to us about all aspects of the product and where the product is going, and learn many more ways to use the product than you'll initially learn. You can only learn so much at first. Every year we have an annual user conference. And of course, we're based in LA, so it's typically fairly close to us. And you can go in here. And we have many customers that come every year or every other year. They've made relationships over the years with many other customers. So you'll get to know other BI360 users. And again, this is just a look back at what was available last year, all these different courses. And I think that should be important to you to know that you can be as close to us as you want. Naturally, our management, ownership, our lead developers, support people that have maybe been a voice on the phone. You'll meet them here at our annual conference. Now, also we have a very powerful customer support portal. And again, I logged into it. So a customer would just go to Solver Global and click support. We have many other materials available here. So I mentioned examples of all of our examples that you see are all available here. Sometimes they're organized by an ERP, but it could be by an industry. By the way, we have industry examples for 18 different industries. So there's some chance that whatever industry you're in, we already have some nice demonstration models to suit that. But you can just go in here, and again, whatever your ERP is, these are big zip files, and you can just download many reports. And again, this is an area you find white papers. There's a little internal forum. So it's moderated by one of our, or some of our lead consultants. So where customers go in and they talk to each other and share information, user guides. Also, although we have, this is a powerful library of videos that are extremely high quality, how to build all of these reports that are well-paced, high-quality video and audio. This is an ad hoc section for training. We have something even more interesting called Solver Academy. This has now been available for 1.5 years. It was late spring, early summer a year ago that we released this. And this is now a 24/7 subscription to methodically learn Power BI from the very most basic skills to very advanced report writing and budget writing skills. There is testing throughout, and we have a full certification for you. So there's a final test when you've learned many of the aspects of report writing and creating budgets. We also, it's very interesting. There's so many topics that you can look up here, and this is growing constantly. So as we get more and more feedback and find more and more interesting information to present to customers, we present it here. So again, I talked about connecting to data. We may do that, Martin and associates may do that for you. But again, maybe you want to learn how to set up these connectors. It's all here. So to walk you through with videos, everything you need to know about connecting data. We're sharing as much as we can, as fast as we can with our customers. We're very proud of this. We have a lot of customers that have joined Solver Academy and are quite loyal to it. Now, by the way, we have many training options from locally. Chris is, if he can make time for you, he's busy, but he has trained a lot of our customers on how to use the product. We have full-time trainers. So typically a new customer, I'm going to say 90% of the customers, this is shrinking now, have had on-site training. So we implement the solution, we set up the data, and then we send a trainer to work with you, take you through some basic concepts, some fundamental concepts, and often segue into workshop, creating in real time with you actual production reports. But Solver Academy, I got to say, we have more and more customers choosing to use the resources we have and self-train. But I'm still going to say it's probably close to 90%, but that percentage is, I'm seeing it shrink every few months of how many people will initially get on-site training, because Solver Academy is a great alternative option for you. Okay, we have talked about the product. We looked even outside the product at Power BI and how it integrates with BI360. I think I'm going to change screens here. And at this point, I told you I wanted to leave some time for questions. So give me a moment here. I'm going to pause the screen. And then we're going to share again. So with that, let's see if we have any questions today.
Hey, Anthony, thanks. We do have a few questions.
All right.
All right, perfect. So one of the ones was about all the different things that you have showed today. So we saw reporting, publisher, data warehouse, and budgeting. Mm-hmm. So the question is, does someone get all of that when you buy Power BI or BI360, or do you buy it in pieces, or how does that work?
Great question. Thank you, Chris. I am all ready for this. How would people like to know exactly what the cost is? Probably, often people do want to know. Now and then people are less interested. They're more interested up front about the functionality. This is actually how we price BI360. So let's talk about this. Demystify anything about it. So a very basic configuration is that a customer will have a power user, someone who can create and execute those reports. Create reports, execute reports. They'll have an integration set up into a particular data source, whatever their ERP is, as one example. And I think it would be a good idea to think of that person as being enrolled in Solver Academy. So in that case, this is the annual subscription for BI360 to get started. By the way, this is general. It starts with general ledger reporting, but you're not limited to that. Now, I'll just work through a few more scenarios, and maybe that'll answer some questions for them, Chris. And we'll also address how they integrate, the cost to integrate to Power BI. But maybe in your accounting department, there's going to be a couple of you that are going to want to be able to edit and design those reports. You don't want to rely on one person. So additional power users, much lower cost. Maybe you also have a couple people that you do want to enable, a couple particular department managers. It could be executives as well. You want to allow them to execute a report at any time, like a Saturday night or a Sunday. They don't want to be reliant on someone else running a report for them. So we'll add a couple of those users. And again, you may have then another handful of users who just need to see executed reports. Those are the ones who are going to go into the archive. That's what we looked at initially. So at this point, we're up to 8 users, and this is the annual subscription to do that. Let's just say you want to also do some at least basic budgeting. And I don't mean just GL, but some enough budgeting. You have a small enough group that'll be involved in budgeting. You don't necessarily need a workflow. By adding the budgeting line item there, this is an annual subscription, and now you're getting reports. And suddenly now also you're getting the ability to report beyond the general ledger, budget beyond the general ledger, and still have quite a few users, 8 different users. And this is how, this would be the pricing for this. Again, publisher, maybe you want to also automate some of the running of reports. So we're just adding and adding, and naturally cost goes up as we add a lot more functionality. But budgeting, look at the value. For a couple hundred a month, you can automate the running and distribution of reports. What's that worth to a company? That having to rely on people to go in and execute and share those reports. You could automate it. Maybe you have several companies that you consolidate. We want to do some consolidated reports. We have 4 companies, so that's 3 additional companies. So everyone can see here is pretty transparent of how the costs work. If you have to do eliminations, advanced consolidation, something beyond simple consolidation, we have the ability to do that. Maybe you have a lot of data from many different sources that you report on. There's no limit to how much data you can report on. We just happen to group it into modules of 5. So I've added a lot here. We've now grown quite a bit. Chris, you want to add to that? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say the main thing is, as you can see, you're only, what's the commercial, the Liberty Mutual, right? You're paying for what you need.
That's right. That's right. So, again, here I've taken liberty, no pun intended, to add quite a few different options here. But maybe, again, it's 8 users, you want to do budgeting, lots of reports. Power BI, I want to address that. So we don't sell Power BI licenses, but we have this API for Power BI. You'll get your Power BI licenses however you do that through Martin, but you can, what that would require is an extra integration, that API to Power BI. So all you're paying is for an additional integration. There's no limit to how many people are going to access it. So as many, whether you have 2 Power BI users or 50, it doesn't matter. That number is, excuse me, all right, 253, I think it was. That's the cost per year. So great. I'm glad people asked about this. I hope this is clear to everyone. Chris, other questions?
Yes, I do have another one.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd mentioned the data warehouse.
Yes.
The question was, besides housing your ERP data and, payroll or other data, like you said, could be imported, how else can that data warehouse be used? Are there other scenarios where the warehouse might come in handy?
Well, it is, let me go back over there as I answer the question. So again, I'm going to change screens. Everybody, bear with me. Let's go back here. How else will it be used? Well, like I said, Power BI is another way to access the data that's in the data warehouse. It's not intended to be an enterprise data warehouse, but more of a data mart. It is a staging area for all of the data that you're going to want to report or budget on. But here's an interesting and a lot of value. Here's an interesting value of having the data warehouse. Suppose you're going to migrate your ERP from one version of an ERP to another, maybe even by another vendor. Maybe, as you know, that's a big part of what Martin and Associates can do. Maybe you're a QuickBooks user and you're going to want to become a GP user, as one example. Well, what happens to the historical data? You don't want to have set up a new ERP and have to still be connecting to the old source of data, and or putting all of that old historical data into your nice, clean, new ERP implementation with a new chart of accounts or all the nice structure and things that go into having a new ERP. This is where a big value. That data could be dumped here into our data warehouse. And so you'll still be able to access the historical data and even do trend reports and trend analysis going back 5 years. You just started using your ERP for 6 months, but you want to see what the trends are for the last 5 years. That data can be available here, and you can create reports that'll integrate both of those sources of data. So that could be another value of the data warehouse. I hope I'm addressing that. Someone should let me know if that's what they were getting at.
That sounded good.
Okay.
One more question.
All right.
So as far as the report design goes, you know, and to the best of your knowledge, do you know your clients typically design the reports? Do partners design the reports? Does BI360 design the reports? How does that work?
Great question, Chris. So I got to say the majority of the customers do want to know how to and build their own reports. Chris has done it, and Chris builds reports for a lot of the customers, and it depends on your business circumstances, but most customers, when I say most, probably 80% or more, would like to have the ability to design them so they don't have to call somebody to create a new report. As I mentioned, all of our example reports are available for you. But the majority get some sort of training and learn to build reports. But of course, there's always the option, if due to some time constraints, personnel turnover, at the moment, maybe some people change departments or leave the company. Well, I will, but where are we left with? They had the skill to build the reports. Of course, you can, for a short-term solution, have Solver build reports. We have a full consulting department. Like I said, definitely Chris has skills. So the majority want to build reports, and we have so many tools, and that's a bit of what I showed you. So many tools to help you get up to speed. And it could even be that you'll build some reports, and maybe you're starting to move into more advanced types of design, but you still want to have someone help you a little bit. So maybe you would just book maybe an hour or two of a consultant's time to review what you've done. Or maybe they'll give you some guidance, let you work on it, come back to them to vet it, review it, remind you of the best practices that you've been taught in some of our courses. So a lot of options for you on designing reports. Please let me know if I answered that question.
Yes, thank you. All right, that is all the questions we had for today, Anthony.
Well, I appreciate it. I saw you had quite a few attendees, so I hope everyone got some value from this, learned something, and we're very excited to have a long-term partnership with Martin. They're very knowledgeable of our product. Like I said, they've got skills to do most everything. I mean, Chris has worked on, I know Chris has implemented the data warehouse before. And set up data connectors. So they've got a lot of skills at Martin in using our product. So that's, I think, a big bonus to all of you attending here today. So
well, thank you.
Chris.
That's very nice. Thank you. I appreciate it. So everyone, I hope you had a wonderful session. We appreciate you attending. and have a great rest of your afternoon.